Hello and welcome. Tonight, we begin a quiet journey into the past, a tranquil voyage designed to carry you from wakefulness into a deep and restful sleep. As you settle in and close your eyes, allow the sound of my voice to be a gentle guide, leading you not through a maze of dates and battles, but into the very heart and soul of a civilization that shaped our world. We are drifting back in time to ancient Greece, a land of sun-drenched islands, rugged mountains, and seas that shimmer with a history as deep and profound as their waters. This is a history not of hurried events, but of enduring ideas. Imagine the soft Aegean breeze as it carries the scent of olive groves and wild thyme. Picture the way the marble of a temple gleams under the pale moonlight. We are not rushing. We are simply observing, allowing the slow-paced narrative to wash over us like the gentle lapping of waves on a shore. Our journey begins not with a war cry, but with the quiet hum of early life, the whispers of the Minoans and the Mycenaeans who set the stage for all that was to come. These were the Bronze Age peoples, crafting beautiful pottery and intricate gold, building palaces that were both centers of power and marvels of engineering. Their legends, the Minotaur, the Trojan War, are echoes that still resonate through time. As we move forward, we enter a period often called the Dark Ages, a time not of literal darkness, but of a quiet, internal transformation. Cities are abandoned, and the grand palaces fall silent. Yet out of this silence, something new is born: the Greek city-state, or polis. These are small, self-governing communities, each with its own character and culture. Think of them as tiny, brilliant stars, each shining with its unique light. We will spend time in these cities, walking their streets, listening to their citizens, and understanding the foundational concepts that took root here, the concepts of law, justice, and citizenship. These are the seeds from which the great tree of Western thought would eventually grow. The journey then takes us to the classical age, the zenith of Greek civilization. This is the era of towering geniuses and breathtaking creativity. Imagine standing in the Athenian agora, the bustling marketplace and heart of the city, and overhearing a conversation between Socrates and his students. Or picture yourself in the magnificent theater of Dionysus, watching a tragedy unfold under the open sky. We will explore the towering achievements in philosophy, from Plato's search for ideal forms to Aristotle's careful study of the natural world. We will trace the birth of democracy in Athens, a radical and fragile experiment in self-governance that changed the course of history. The Parthenon will rise before us, not as a static ruin, but as a vibrant temple, its sculptures painted in vivid colors, a testament to an age of unparalleled artistic expression. But even in this golden age, there are shadows. The conflict between Athens and Sparta, the Peloponnesian War, is a slow-burning tragedy that we will witness unfold. It's a clash of two very different ideals: the artistic, democratic spirit of Athens against the disciplined, military might of Sparta. This struggle weakens the Greek world, leaving it vulnerable to a new power rising in the north. We will then gently turn our attention to the figure of Alexander the Great, a visionary king who, in a breathtaking series of campaigns, will spread Greek culture and influence across an immense empire, from Egypt to India. This Hellenistic period is a time of fusion, where Greek ideas blend with Eastern traditions, creating a rich and vibrant new tapestry of art and thought. Finally, we arrive at the legacy of ancient Greece, a legacy that is not buried in ruins, but lives on in our language, our art, and our political systems. The quiet rhythm of the narrative will carry us through the centuries, revealing how Roman conquerors, while subjugating the Greeks politically, were themselves captivated by Greek culture. We will see how Greek philosophy and science were preserved and transmitted, influencing Islamic scholars and, eventually, sparking the Renaissance in Europe. As we begin this journey, remember to simply listen. There are no quizzes, no pressures, only the unfolding story of a remarkable civilization. Let the details of life in a Greek city-state, the slow march of a hoplite army, or the profound words of a philosopher be the soft rhythm that lulls you to sleep. This is not a lecture. It is a historical lullaby, a gentle pathway to rest. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and allow the ancient world to carry you away. We begin our journey not in the bustling city-states we know so well, but in the distant echoes of the Bronze Age, in a world that feels almost mythical. Imagine yourself on the beautiful island of Crete, bathed in the soft glow of the Mediterranean sun. Here, a brilliant and peaceful civilization is flourishing. These are the Minoans. Their palaces, like the magnificent Knossos, are not fortified citadels, but sprawling, elegant complexes, filled with colorful frescoes depicting dolphins, bull leapers, and graceful floral designs. As we walk through the labyrinthine corridors, we can feel the sense of artistic grace and a deep connection to nature. The Minoans were master seafarers and traders, their ships traversing the Aegean Sea, exchanging goods and ideas with other cultures. Their society seems to have been organized around these grand palaces, which served as centers for administration, religion, and storage. The quiet hum of daily life is a testament to a people who, for centuries, lived in a relative state of peace, their power rooted not in military might, but in economic prosperity and artistic expression. As we drift forward in time, the serene world of the Minoans begins to fade, giving way to a new and more formidable culture on the mainland of Greece. These are the Mycenaeans. Their world is one of fortified citadels, built high on hills with massive stone walls that we can still see today. Think of the citadel of Mycenae itself, with its famous lion gate, a symbol of power and strength. Unlike the Minoans, the Mycenaeans were a more martial society, and their influence spread not only through trade, but also through conquest. Their history is the stuff of epic legends, tales of great heroes and legendary battles. The Trojan War, a story etched into our collective memory by the poet Homer, is believed to have its roots in this Mycenaean era. We can almost hear the echoes of their chariot wheels and the clash of bronze shields. Their society was ruled by powerful kings, or wanaks, who lived in splendid palaces decorated with frescoes that often depicted scenes of warfare and hunting. The Mycenaeans were not just warriors, they were also skilled artisans, leaving behind stunning gold work, intricate jewelry, and beautiful pottery. They adopted and adapted the Minoan writing system, creating their own script known as Linear B, which was a very early form of Greek. This script gives us a glimpse into their world, recording palace inventories, military preparations, and the names of their gods, many of whom we recognize as the deities of later Greek mythology: Zeus, Hera, and Poseidon. The Mycenaean civilization represents a more rugged, hierarchical society than the Minoans, with a focus on aristocratic rule and military prowess. However, around 1200 BCE, a dramatic and mysterious change takes place. The great Mycenaean palaces are destroyed and their civilization collapses. The cause is not entirely clear. Some historians point to internal strife, others to invasions, and still others to natural disasters or economic collapse. Whatever the reason, the sophisticated world of the Mycenaeans disappears, ushering in a period of decline and disruption that historians call the Greek Dark Ages. Cities are abandoned, trade routes are forgotten, and the art of writing is lost for several centuries. It's a time of quiet retreat as people move into smaller, isolated communities. Yet, this is not an end, but a transition. From the ashes of the Mycenaean palaces, a new world will slowly begin to emerge. A world where independent communities, rather than centralized empires, will become the building blocks of a new civilization. This quiet period of internal restructuring lays the groundwork for the unique Greek city-state, the polis, which will define the next great era of Greek history. As we let the stories of the Minoan and Mycenaean worlds gently fade, we are preparing for the rebirth that will follow, a new chapter in the history of this remarkable land. As the grand palaces of the Mycenaeans faded into memory, the Greek world entered a quiet and transformative period known as the Dark Age. This era, which stretched from roughly 1100 to 800 BCE, was not a time of total collapse, but a time of profound change and reorganization. Imagine the land, once dominated by powerful centralized kingdoms, now dotted with small, isolated communities. The population declined, major trade networks dissolved, and the art of writing was lost. This period is called dark, not because it was without culture, but because it left so few written records. It's as if the world held its breath for 300 years. Yet, from this stillness, a new and fundamental unit of Greek life began to emerge: the polis, or city-state. Picture these as small, independent communities, often centered around a fortified hilltop or acropolis, with farmland and villages spreading out around it. Each polis was its own sovereign entity, with its own government, laws, and customs. It was a complete world in miniature, where a citizen's identity was first and foremost tied to their city. The concept of the polis was revolutionary. It fostered a fierce sense of local identity and loyalty, a deep connection to one's own community that would define the rest of Greek history. As we drift through the centuries, we see these city-states slowly growing, their populations swelling, and their interactions becoming more complex. The reemergence of trade and a newfound prosperity led to a period of great expansion. The Greeks, driven by population growth and a quest for new resources, began to establish colonies all across the Mediterranean world. Imagine ships with a single square sail, filled with families and supplies, setting out from their home city to find a new land. They traveled to the shores of Italy, Sicily, North Africa, and the Black Sea. These colonies were not mere outposts. They were new city-states, independent of their mother city, but bound to it by shared religion, language, and cultural ties. This great wave of colonization spread Greek culture, architecture, and political ideas far and wide, laying the groundwork for a truly Hellenic world. During this time, the Greeks also reacquired the ability to write, adopting a new alphabet from the Phoenicians and adapting it to their own language. This development was monumental. With writing, they could record laws, compose epic poems like those of Homer, and engage in philosophical thought. It was a tool that would allow ideas to be preserved and transmitted with unprecedented clarity. The Homeric epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, were likely composed during this time. They are more than just stories of heroic deeds. They are a window into the values of the age, celebrating honor, glory, and the pursuit of excellence. They served as a moral compass and a cultural touchstone for all Greeks, helping to forge a sense of shared identity despite the political independence of the city-states. As these city-states matured, so too did their forms of government. The early Dark Age communities were often ruled by kings, but as the power of the land-owning aristocracy grew, monarchies were often replaced by oligarchies, ruled by a small elite group. In some cases, a single, powerful individual, a tyrant, would seize power, often with the support of the common people against the aristocrats. These tyrants were not necessarily cruel despots. Many were popular rulers who brought stability and public works to their cities. But the Greeks eventually came to view tyranny as an unstable and undesirable form of government, paving the way for further political innovation. This period of political experimentation, of trying different ways to organize society, was a crucial prelude to the great democratic revolution that would later unfold in one of the most famous city-states of all, Athens. As the quiet hum of these emerging communities grows louder, we are setting the stage for the dramatic rise of the classical age, where these small seeds of a new society will blossom into a cultural and intellectual flowering that will echo through the ages. As the Greek world emerged from its quiet Dark Age, the stage was set for a dramatic and vibrant chapter in human history. We now turn our attention to the city-state that would become the very symbol of this new era, Athens. Imagine yourself standing on the Acropolis, the high, rocky plateau overlooking the city. Below, the bustling life of the agora, the marketplace and civic center, unfolds. Here, farmers sell their produce, merchants haggle over goods, and, most importantly, citizens gather to discuss politics and philosophy. This is the classical age of Greece, and in Athens, it is a period of unparalleled creativity and intellectual ferment. The most profound and lasting contribution of Athens was the birth of democracy, or demokratia, rule by the people. This was not an instant creation, but a slow, careful evolution. The early Athenian government was an aristocracy, ruled by a handful of noble families. However, social and economic tensions began to mount, leading to a series of reforms. The first great reformer was Solon, who in the early 6th century BCE canceled all debts, freed those enslaved for debt, and established a more equitable legal code. Later, Clisthenes, often called the father of Athenian democracy, instituted a radical new system. He reorganized citizens into new tribes based on geography rather than family ties, which helped to break the power of the old noble clans. He established the assembly, or ecclesia, a body composed of all male citizens, who would meet regularly to vote on laws and major policies. This was a system of direct democracy, where citizens didn't elect representatives but participated directly in the government. The very idea that ordinary people could govern themselves was revolutionary, a concept that would forever change the course of political thought. Simultaneously, Athens became a hotbed of philosophical inquiry. This was the era of the great thinkers whose ideas continue to shape our world. Picture the wise old Socrates, wandering the agora, engaging citizens in conversations, and famously asking questions that challenged their most fundamental beliefs. He sought to understand concepts like justice, truth, and virtue, believing that through reasoned discussion, or the Socratic method, one could arrive at true knowledge. His student, Plato, would go on to found the Academy, one of the first institutions of higher learning in the Western world. In his dialogues, Plato explored ideal forms, the nature of reality, and the structure of a perfect society, as laid out in his masterpiece, The Republic. And then there was Aristotle, Plato's student, who was a brilliant polymath. He created a systematic approach to logic, politics, ethics, and biology, meticulously observing the natural world and classifying its phenomena. These three men, a quiet progression of teacher and student, created an intellectual legacy that would serve as the foundation of Western philosophy for millennia. The artistic and architectural achievements of this age were equally breathtaking. The most enduring symbol of this period is the Parthenon, the magnificent temple dedicated to the goddess Athena. Imagine it not as the bleached ruin we see today, but in its full glory. Its marble columns gleamed, its intricate frieze sculptures were painted in vibrant colors, and a massive statue of Athena, made of gold and ivory, stood within. This temple was a testament to the city's power, wealth, and profound religious devotion. In the theater, Athens created a new art form, drama. The great playwrights, Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, wrote powerful tragedies that explored fundamental human questions about fate, justice, and morality. Comedies, penned by writers like Aristophanes, poked fun at politicians and society, showing a vibrant and self-aware culture unafraid to laugh at itself. These dramatic performances were not mere entertainment. They were civic events, religious rituals that brought the entire community together. This period of Athenian greatness, however, was not without its shadows. The democracy we so admire was limited. It excluded women, slaves, and foreign residents, who made up the majority of the population. Athens' growing power led to the creation of an empire, and its aggressive foreign policy would eventually bring it into a long and devastating conflict with its great rival, Sparta. As we let the hum of the Athenian agora and the profound words of its philosophers slowly recede, we are preparing to witness the other side of the Greek world, a world of military discipline and austere living, which will soon come into direct and dramatic conflict with the shining city of Athens. While Athens was a vibrant center of democracy, philosophy, and art, another powerful and profoundly different city-state was flourishing in the south of the Peloponnese. This was Sparta, a society built not on free speech and artistic expression, but on discipline, military might, and a rigid, communal lifestyle. As we turn our attention from the bustling agora of Athens, let us quietly journey to the austere valley of Laconia, where the Helots, a subjugated population, worked the land, allowing Spartan citizens to dedicate their lives entirely to military training and service. The Spartan way of life was famously centered on the military. From a very young age, a Spartan male's life was meticulously planned for one purpose: to be an excellent soldier. At the age of 7, boys were taken from their homes to begin a rigorous training program called the agoge. Imagine a group of young boys living in communal barracks, undergoing intense physical training, learning to endure hunger and pain, and participating in military drills. This education was not for individual glory, but for the collective good of the state. It was a life of discipline and endurance, designed to forge not just warriors, but citizens who would place the needs of Sparta above their own. At 20, they would join the army, and it wasn't until 30 that they were considered full citizens, allowed to live in their own homes, though they continued to eat their meals in the communal dining hall, or syssitia. The ideal Spartan was not an orator or a poet, but a man of few words, strong and unflinching in battle. This rigid social structure was the direct result of a historical necessity. Sparta's economic foundation rested on the labor of the Helots, a class of state-owned serfs. The Spartans' primary fear was a Helot revolt, and their entire society, with its focus on military readiness, was a direct response to this constant threat. This created a powerful and highly effective army, but it also meant that Sparta was a closed, conservative society. They were wary of outside ideas and influences, viewing them as a potential threat to their social order. While Athens was a bustling hub of international trade and thought, Sparta was an introspective society, content with its self-sufficiency and its singular focus. These two different worlds, Athens and Sparta, were forced to confront a common enemy that threatened to extinguish all of Greek civilization, the vast and powerful Persian Empire. Imagine the immense scale of this threat. A series of massive invasions, first by King Darius I and later by his son Xerxes I, were launched to punish the Greeks for supporting a rebellion in Asia Minor. The first great clash was the Battle of Marathon in 490 BCE, where a small, outnumbered Athenian army defeated the Persian forces on a plain just north of the city. The story of the runner who brought news of the victory to Athens, a distance of about 26 miles, has become a legend, a testament to the power of determined people defending their home. 10 years later, the Persians returned with a much larger force, determined to conquer all of Greece. This time, the Greeks, led by both Athens and Sparta, united to face the threat. We remember the heroic stand of King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans at the narrow pass of Thermopylae. Though ultimately a defeat, their sacrifice bought crucial time for the rest of the Greek forces. It was a powerful symbol of their unwavering courage. The decisive naval battle took place at Salamis, where the clever Athenian admiral Themistocles used the narrow straits to his advantage, destroying the much larger Persian fleet. Finally, in 479 BCE, the combined Greek army defeated the remaining Persian land forces at the Battle of Plataea, bringing an end to the invasions. These Persian wars were a pivotal moment in Greek history. They not only preserved the independence of the Greek city-states, but also fostered a temporary sense of Greek unity. More importantly, they elevated Athens to a new level of prestige. The city's navy had been instrumental in the victory at Salamis, and Athens would now use this newfound power and influence to create its own maritime empire, a move that would ultimately set it on a collision course with its former ally, Sparta. As the memory of the great Persian threat fades, the stage is being set for a new and even more devastating conflict, a civil war that will pit the two great powers of the Greek world against each other. With the Persian threat neutralized, the Greek world found itself in a new and uneasy balance of power. The temporary unity forged in the heat of battle began to unravel, and two distinct power blocks emerged. Athens, leveraging its naval dominance and newfound prestige, formed the Delian League, a powerful alliance of city-states ostensibly for mutual defense against future Persian aggression. In reality, this league quickly transformed into an Athenian empire. The member states paid tribute, and Athens used this wealth to rebuild its city, commissioning the magnificent Parthenon and funding its democratic institutions. Meanwhile, Sparta, a land-based power, led its own alliance, the Peloponnesian League, composed of cities who feared Athenian expansion and sought to preserve their own independence. The stage was set for a slow-burning conflict, a civil war that would engulf the Greek world for decades and fundamentally alter its course. This conflict, known as the Peloponnesian War, was not a single continuous war, but a series of struggles punctuated by uneasy truces. It was a clash of two very different ways of life. On one side was Athens, a democratic, mercantile, and naval power that represented innovation, artistic expression, and intellectual debate. On the other was Sparta, a militaristic, oligarchic, and land-based power that stood for tradition, discipline, and stability. The war began in 431 BCE, and it would last for nearly 30 years, a long and exhausting struggle that would drain the resources and energy of the entire Greek world. The great Athenian historian Thucydides, an eyewitness to the conflict, chronicled the war in meticulous detail. His history is a sober account of the human cost of conflict, filled with speeches and analysis that explore the deep-seated tensions and motivations of the warring parties. We can almost hear the voices of Athenian and Spartan ambassadors, each trying to justify their cause. The war itself was fought on multiple fronts, both on land and at sea. Sparta, with its invincible army, was dominant on land, ravaging the Athenian countryside. Athens, however, was safe within its massive walls that stretched all the way to the port of Piraeus, and its powerful navy controlled the seas, allowing it to import food and supplies. The early years of the war were a stalemate, but then a devastating plague struck Athens, killing a significant portion of its population, including its great leader, Pericles. This tragedy was a severe blow to Athenian morale and leadership. The war continued, with moments of Athenian victory and Spartan triumph, but it was a war of attrition, with both sides becoming more ruthless and desperate as the conflict wore on. We can imagine the quiet despair of the citizens, the prolonged anxiety, the loss of life and property. The once clear moral lines of the Persian wars began to blur. The turning point came with the disastrous Athenian expedition to Sicily in 415 BCE. The Athenians, in an overconfident and ambitious move, sent a huge fleet and army to conquer the city of Syracuse. The campaign was a complete and utter failure, with the entire Athenian force being annihilated. This defeat was a mortal blow from which Athens could never fully recover. Sparta, with the help of Persian funding for a new fleet, was finally able to challenge and defeat the Athenian navy. In 404 BCE, after a long siege, Athens surrendered. Its walls were torn down and its empire was dismantled. The war had a profound and lasting impact. It marked the end of the Golden Age of Athens. While the city would recover its democracy, its political and military power was gone forever. The war also left the Greek world exhausted and fractured. The power vacuum created by the defeat of Athens and the subsequent struggles for dominance among other city-states left the entire region vulnerable to a new power rising in the north. The once vibrant city-states, so fiercely independent, had bled each other dry. As we let the bitter echoes of this long and tragic war recede, we are preparing for the quiet march of a new force, a force that will unify the Greek world not through philosophical ideals, but through military conquest. As the Greek city-states lay exhausted and divided in the aftermath of the Peloponnesian War, a new and formidable power was quietly rising to prominence in the north. This was the kingdom of Macedon, a land of rugged mountains and plains, long considered by many Greeks to be a semi-barbaric backwater. But a remarkable king, Philip II, would transform Macedon into a military and political powerhouse. Imagine this brilliant, one-eyed king, not only a skilled diplomat, but also a military innovator of the highest order. He created a new kind of army, a professional force equipped with the sarissa, a pike nearly 20 feet long, and trained to fight in a coordinated Macedonian phalanx. This was an army of unprecedented efficiency and discipline, and with it, Philip began a steady campaign of conquest and political maneuvering, slowly extending his influence over the entire Greek mainland. By 338 BCE, Philip had defeated the combined forces of Athens and Thebes at the Battle of Chaeronea, a decisive victory that brought an end to Greek city-state independence. Philip's ambition was not to simply rule the Greeks, but to unite them under his banner for a grander purpose, a massive invasion of the Persian Empire. This was the great dream he left to his son, Alexander. And what a son he was. Alexander was not a wild, uncultured barbarian from the north. He was a student of the great philosopher Aristotle, who had been hired by Philip to tutor his son. From Aristotle, Alexander received a profound education in Greek philosophy, science, and literature, and he developed a lifelong passion for Homer's Iliad. This education made him a true believer in Greek culture and its superiority. When Philip was assassinated in 336 BCE, Alexander, at just 20 years old, became king. The Greek city-states, seeing an opportunity for freedom, immediately revolted. Alexander's response was swift and brutal. He crushed the rebellion, making a chilling example of the city of Thebes, which he razed to the ground, selling its inhabitants into slavery. The message was clear. There would be no more revolts. With Greece pacified, Alexander turned his attention to his father's dream, the conquest of Persia. Imagine the sheer audacity of this undertaking. At the head of a relatively small but highly disciplined army of Macedonians and Greeks, Alexander crossed into Asia Minor. He was more than a conqueror. He was an almost mythical figure, a brilliant military strategist who seemed to possess an unshakable belief in his own destiny. We can picture his famous cutting of the Gordian knot, his brilliant victories at the Battle of Aetius, and later at Gaugamela, where he decisively defeated the massive Persian army led by King Darius III. His campaigns were a whirlwind of action and triumph, a story that still captivates us today. Alexander's conquests were breathtaking in their scale and speed. He marched his army through Asia Minor, down the coast of the Levant, and into Egypt, where he was welcomed as a liberator and founded the great city of Alexandria. From there, he pushed into Mesopotamia, defeated the heart of the Persian Empire, and continued eastward, all the way to the borders of India. He never lost a single battle. Along the way, he founded numerous cities, all named Alexandria, which served as new centers of Greek culture and influence. He encouraged his soldiers to marry local women and sought to create a fusion of Greek and Eastern cultures. He was a visionary who dreamed of a unified empire stretching across the known world, where Greek ideas and language would be the common currency. But his extraordinary journey came to an end in 323 BCE, when Alexander died in Babylon at the age of just 32. The cause of his death is still debated, but his passing was a seismic event. He had no clear successor, and his vast empire, held together only by his sheer force of personality, was immediately plunged into a series of bitter civil wars among his generals, known as the Diadochi. As the echo of Alexander's triumphant march across the ancient world begins to fade, we are left to witness the fracturing of his empire, a new era where Greek culture will be spread across the entire Eastern Mediterranean and beyond, a world of grand kingdoms and Hellenistic ideals. With the death of Alexander the Great, his vast, interconnected empire did not hold together. Instead, it fractured into a series of competing successor kingdoms, each ruled by one of his former generals, the Diadochi. This period, known as the Hellenistic Age, which lasted from Alexander's death in 323 BCE to the final Roman conquest in 31 BCE, was a time of immense cultural change and geographical expansion for the Greek world. Imagine the map of the ancient world as it is redrawn, with massive kingdoms now taking the place of the small, independent city-states. The three most significant were the Seleucid Empire in the east, the Ptolemaic Kingdom in Egypt, and the Antigonid Kingdom in Macedon. This new Hellenistic world was far different from the Greece of Socrates and Pericles. The focus was no longer on the small, democratic polis, but on large, multi-ethnic monarchies ruled by powerful kings. Cities like Alexandria in Egypt, a planned city founded by Alexander himself, became the new centers of Greek culture, learning, and commerce. We can imagine the magnificent Library of Alexandria, a repository of all the knowledge of the ancient world, a place where scholars from across the Mediterranean gathered to study and debate. The famous lighthouse, the Pharos of Alexandria, was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, half a testament to the engineering and ambition of the age. Other great Hellenistic cities like Antioch in Syria and Pergamon in Asia Minor also became intellectual and artistic hubs, vibrant and cosmopolitan places where Greek language and customs blended with the indigenous cultures of the Near East. This cultural fusion, or syncretism, is the defining characteristic of the Hellenistic age. Greek language, known as Koine Greek, became the common tongue of trade and administration from Sicily to India. Philosophies like Stoicism and Epicureanism emerged, offering guidance on how to live a good life in a world that felt much larger and more uncertain than the old city-state. Stoics, for example, taught that virtue was the highest good, and that one should live in harmony with the natural order of the universe, accepting one's fate with calm rationality. Epicureans, on the other hand, sought to achieve a state of tranquility and freedom from fear or ataraxia by pursuing simple pleasures and avoiding pain. These philosophies were not just academic exercises. They were practical ways of dealing with a world of vast empires and shifting loyalties, providing comfort and guidance in a new era. In science and mathematics, the Hellenistic world was a golden age of discovery. Think of the great minds working in Alexandria. The mathematician Euclid wrote the Elements, a foundational text on geometry that would be used for over 2,000 years. The astronomer Aristarchus of Samos proposed a heliocentric model of the solar system, where the Earth revolves around the Sun, an idea far ahead of its time. Eratosthenes accurately calculated the circumference of the Earth, a remarkable feat of observation in geometry. Archimedes of Syracuse, a brilliant engineer and inventor, developed principles of mechanics and buoyancy that are still taught today. These are not just isolated geniuses, but part of a flourishing intellectual ecosystem where knowledge was pursued with vigor and curiosity. Art also underwent a transformation. While classical Greek art was known for its calm, idealized forms, Hellenistic art was more dynamic, emotional, and realistic. We can see this in sculptures like the Laocoon group with its dramatic sense of struggle and agony, or the graceful winged victory of Samothrace, a statue that captures a powerful moment of movement and triumph. The focus shifted from the perfect and idealized to the human and emotional, reflecting the complexities and anxieties of the time. Yet, as these kingdoms flourished, they were also prone to constant warfare and political instability. The legacy of Alexander's ambition was a landscape of perpetual conflict between his successors, a relentless struggle for power that would eventually leave them all vulnerable. As we let the vibrant and cosmopolitan images of the Hellenistic kingdoms fade, a new and powerful force is emerging from the West, a force that will eventually come to dominate the entire Mediterranean world and bring this glorious age to a close. The Roman Republic is quietly growing, and its shadow is beginning to fall across the Hellenistic world. As the Hellenistic kingdoms continued their internal rivalries and struggles for dominance, a new and powerful force was emerging to the west: the Roman Republic. Rome's expansion was a slow and relentless process, and as its legions marched through the Italian peninsula and beyond, it began to clash with the established Greek world. This was not a swift conquest like Alexander's, but a gradual absorption, a series of wars and political maneuverings that saw Rome slowly chip away at the independence of the Greek kingdoms. By the middle of the 2nd century BCE, the Roman Republic had become the dominant power in the region, bringing the Hellenistic world under its control. The final Greek kingdom, Ptolemaic Egypt, would not fall until 34 BCE with the defeat of Cleopatra, but by then, the political fate of Greece had been sealed for over a century. While Rome conquered the Greeks militarily, it was, in a profound way, conquered by Greek culture. This is one of the great ironies of history. The Roman poet Horace famously said, "Captured Greece, captured her savage conqueror." The Romans were deeply in awe of Greek art, literature, philosophy, and architecture. As Roman armies marched through Greece, they sent back countless statues, manuscripts, and works of art to Rome, transforming the Roman cultural landscape. Greek tutors were highly sought after to educate the children of elite Roman families, ensuring that the next generation of leaders was well-versed in Greek language and thought. Greek became the language of learning and diplomacy throughout the eastern half of the Roman Empire, and its influence was felt everywhere. Imagine a Roman patrician's home. It is filled with marble copies of famous Greek sculptures. Its walls are decorated with frescoes in the Greek style, and in its library are scrolls containing the works of Homer, Plato, and Aristotle. This was not a simple imitation, but a deep cultural assimilation. The Romans adopted the Greek gods, giving them new names. Zeus became Jupiter, Hera became Juno, and so on. They built temples and theaters that, while distinctly Roman in engineering, were heavily influenced by Greek architectural principles. The enduring legacy of Roman architecture, with its use of columns, pediments, and friezes, is a direct inheritance from the Greeks. Greek ideas profoundly influenced Roman law and governance. The concept of natural law, which can be traced back to the Stoic philosophers of the Hellenistic period, became a cornerstone of Roman legal thought. The Romans, with their genius for organization and administration, created a system of codified law that incorporated many of these Greek philosophical principles, a system that would serve as the basis for legal systems in the Western world for centuries to come. The Roman Empire, in effect, became the vessel through which Greek ideas were preserved, transmitted, and spread across a vast empire. The city of Athens, while no longer a political power, remained a vibrant intellectual center. It became a kind of university city, a place where young Romans would travel to study philosophy and rhetoric. The academy, the lyceum, and the Stoic Stoa still functioned, attracting students from all over the empire. The Parthenon, no longer a functioning temple, stood as a monument to a glorious past, a powerful symbol of the cultural heritage that the Romans so admired. The Greek legacy was not erased by Roman conquest. Rather, it was integrated into a larger, more enduring framework. As we let the image of this cultural exchange gently fade, we are seeing the final chapter of ancient Greece not as a story of decline and fall, but as a quiet continuation. Greek thought and culture were not extinguished, but rather transformed and given a new life under the Roman umbrella. This deep and lasting fusion ensured that the ideas born in the Greek city-states would not be lost to history, but would be preserved, allowing them to quietly influence the future of Western civilization for millennia to come. As we reach the conclusion of our journey, we can reflect on the profound and enduring legacy of ancient Greece. A legacy that is not simply buried in ruins and dusty texts, but lives on as a vibrant and essential part of the world we inhabit today. The direct political and military power of the Greek city-states may have vanished under the weight of Roman legions, but the power of Greek ideas in art, philosophy, politics, and science was only beginning its long and influential life. The Greek contribution to Western civilization is not a collection of artifacts. It is a foundational blueprint, a set of questions, methods, and ideals that continue to shape our world. Let us first consider the idea of democracy. Though it was a limited form of governance in Athens, the very concept that a society could be governed by its citizens rather than by a king or an aristocracy was a radical departure from all that had come before. This Athenian experiment, with its emphasis on civic participation, open debate, and the rule of law, created a political vocabulary that we still use today. Our own democratic systems, with their assemblies and legal codes, are a direct echo of the Athenian experience. The very word politics comes from the Greek word polis, the city-state itself. The questions the Athenians grappled with, how to balance individual liberty with the common good, how to prevent the tyranny of the majority, how to ensure justice for all, are still the central questions of political philosophy. In the realm of thought, the legacy is equally staggering. The Greek philosophers, from the pre-Socratics' quest to understand the natural world to the profound moral and ethical inquiries of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, laid the groundwork for almost all subsequent Western philosophy. The systematic method of logic, the careful classification of knowledge, and the pursuit of truth through reasoned inquiry were all Greek innovations. When we study ethics, metaphysics, or political theory, we are in a quiet dialogue with these ancient thinkers. The great libraries and universities that were born in the Hellenistic age, like the Library of Alexandria, were the forerunners of our own modern institutions of higher learning, dedicated to the pursuit and preservation of knowledge. The Greek contribution to the arts is all around us. The principles of classical architecture, with its orderly columns and harmonious proportions, have been revived and reinterpreted countless times, from the Roman era to the Renaissance, and even in the design of our modern government buildings and museums. The very concept of Western theater, with its genres of tragedy and comedy, its use of dialogue and plot, and its function as both entertainment and a form of social commentary, was born in the theaters of Dionysus. The sculptures and frescoes, which celebrated the idealized human form, continue to inspire artists to this day, a testament to the belief that beauty and truth are intertwined. Even in our daily language, the legacy of Greece is profound. Countless English words have their roots in ancient Greek: democracy, philosophy, history, tragedy, comedy, rhetoric, academy, and chaos, to name just a few. These words are not just labels, they are concepts that carry the weight of a long intellectual and cultural history. They are the quiet whispers of the past, still shaping the way we think and communicate. The stories and myths of the Greek gods, heroes, and monsters, from the labors of Heracles to the tragic fate of Oedipus, have been a source of inspiration for poets, writers, and artists for thousands of years, providing a rich tapestry of archetypes and narratives that continue to resonate with us. As we bring our quiet journey to a close, let us not think of ancient Greece as a distant, dead civilization. Instead, let us see it as a living part of our world, a foundation upon which so much of our art, our science, our political thought, and our very language is built. The quiet rhythm of the past flows into the present, and the ideas born on those sun-drenched shores continue to shape the way we understand ourselves and our place in the world. As you drift further into sleep, let these enduring echoes be a final, soothing thought. The history of Greece is not over. It is a continuous thread woven into the fabric of time.